All right, in the last recording we ended up saving. We got everything to save pretty well. We did add a check before we save to make sure there's no bad fields left at the class level. The user hadn't somehow on the form skipped required fields. We can't verify that, but we will. We modified the GUI so that the GUI first checks to make sure there's no error markers on the form. If there's no error markers, then it saves. Remember, we just did back in the business class, bad fields. If there are bad fields, we throw an exception. So here's a try. If there's an exception with either one of these, we'll catch it and it won't do the save. But if everything's cool, then we display a message box. So if we get through all of this, meaning there's no bad data, the database saves properly, we should be good. But the one thing we haven't dealt with is these pesky null values. Turns out we can transfer null from our program directly into the database. So if we're down here in our save record, I'm back in the business class now, and we're issuing our command to update the pizza order, and the cheese sticks is null. If the cheese sticks is null, that works. It's not a problem. So let's just demonstrate that. Let's go in here, this first record, and say, you know what, he's decided he doesn't want any cheese sticks. Save. No problem. Blank. Leave. Come back. Blank. No problem. So that's cool. So we don't have to worry about that with cheese sticks or coupons. However, with soda, in the get record routine, we said, if the soda is null in the database, convert it to an empty string. Not null, an empty string. We send the empty string to the text box displays an empty string. The user leaves the soda blank, the empty string comes back. Soda has an empty string in it, not null. We don't want to save if the soda is null. We do not want to save an empty string because that's what's in there. We want to convert that empty string into a null so that it doesn't take up excess space. And I'm talking 20–25% in the database from calculations that I've done. And that might be extreme today. Maybe the databases have gotten smarter since I tested this. But I tested it a few years back. I wrote a program where I didn't convert it to null, threw everything in the database, 10,000 sample records, and the size was significant, a 20% size. Now, again, 10,000 records is not a lot, but 20%, yeah, that's quite a bit. That's what I remember. Don't quote me. So I would really like to turn this into a null. Got a couple of options. I was reading through my notes here. It said if your text fields store the empty string instead of null, they shouldn't. Oh, really? Be sure to convert them to null before you save. So I thought, well, let's just do a quick test, and I did this before class. What happens if I put null here? It's not a syntax error. I can put that in a string, yeah. But what it does do is it crashes my program when I try to transfer a null soda into a text box. So I got a couple of choices here. I could say make it null here, and then in the GUI I would have to say, is that soda that I got from the business class null? If it is, then put an empty string in here. Otherwise, just do the regular stuff. But if I do that, then when I send it back, then the GUI has to say, is it the empty string? If it is, make it a null and send that back. Or I could just say the only time I care is when I'm inserting and when I'm updating. The only time I really care is down here in save record. So instead of changing my program in 3 different places, change the get record to save null, change the GUI to accept null, change the GUI to send null back, I'm going to change it in one place. If you want to do it the other way, you're welcome to, but I think this is easier. Only you need to deal with it in one place. If everything in my form is good, what I want to do is create a temporary variable, it's a string, called, I'm going to call it n soda. N, there we go, soda. The prefix n means nullable. It's just a temporary variable. And in there, I'm going to say, is the soda the empty string? If it is, then give me null. Otherwise, give me the soda. So n soda will have either null in it or whatever was in the soda property. And then down here, instead of sending soda, you send the n soda. All of this just so that I don't store an empty string in the database. Now I'm putting this in my sample code so that when you look at it, notice I said convert all empty strings. What about my first name, last name? Can they be empty? Not what I'm saving because they're required. So the only thing you have to worry about here, the only ones you have to worry about are your strings that are optional. And this is the only string in this program that is optional. So in your DVD, the store maybe, the genre, I forget what's required, car maintenance, the shop that did it, optional. If they're the empty string, just copy this, change it so that it's n shop, shop, shop. And if I have 3 strings that are null, I put all 3 of them here. Wait a second. Just had a thought. There's my soda null. That goes back to the empty string, but I just had a thought. What if I go back to the form, and in the form, in display record, where are you? There it is. This is where it crashes. Right here, I say cmb soda.text equals norder.soda. What if I did a 2-string to that? I'm 2-stringing a string? That seems redundant, doesn't it? But if it's null, I think 2-string works. Here's my test. Nope. So much for that thought. I tried. So I think the best solution, the easiest solution, and of course easy is not always best, but I think this is acceptable, is to store the empty string in your strings. And when it's time to save, convert the empty strings to null. How many should there be? 2, 3? Shouldn't be a whole lot. It's only the optional strings. Then the trick is to remember to use this n soda down here, not the regular soda, because the regular soda still got the empty string in it. And your program will run merrily along on its way, and it'll save all those empty strings into the database. In Access, it's nearly impossible to sense the difference between a null field and an empty string field. They look exactly the same. In MySQL, you've seen it, there's a little black reversed image text null that says this thing's empty versus an empty string. In Access, we can't tell. So I'll be watching for it to make sure you're not wasting space in the database. Real world, how many tortoises are there going to be? 10,000. What's a couple of bytes here and there? Not a whole lot. And again, I'm not training you to write a 10,000 record database. I'm preparing you potentially for the 10 billion record database where empty strings is going to make a difference. Okay? So, for one more time, in save record, we need to deal with empty strings, convert them to null. This is a temporary thing. This is a temporary local variable. Use n soda. N soda goes away, and soda retains its empty string value if it's empty. Last year, I had a couple students didn't like this extra line. They took this entire thing and plopped it right there. Made that update order command just look terrible. I hated it. But I couldn't really mark it wrong because they thought, I don't know, they convinced me it works. Okay, what's next? Canceling changes. Ooh. Okay, run the program. Make some changes and go, oh, geez, wrong record. What was it? Forgot already. Like be able to hit cancel and put this back the way it was. What does that mean? Well, going back to our picture here, it kind of means that I got to go all the way back to the database, get the original record, bring it back, put it in here, put it in the business class, because this business class is all messed up, right? The business class is messed up because I clicked on those extra checkboxes and the business class has already updated itself to reflect what's on the form. It's already updated. But my data table hasn't been updated yet. So what we're going to do when we cancel is basically go back, get the original record, and put it back in here again, I think. Here's the command. The original business class, the original date in the business class has been changed. So I'll have to go back to the database, which still contains unchanged data. And the easy, boy, what year is this? 2015. I'm having a second thought. Because I just looked at that picture. And just because I changed this doesn't mean my data record has changed. Do I have to go back? I shouldn't have to go back to the database, but what I don't have anymore, oh, no, I don't have a data table anymore. So much for that idea. I don't have a data table because when I went to get the record, I said, make me a data table right here, fill it up, make dr point to the beginning of it. And then what happened down here to TA, DT, and DR? Bye-bye. They're local. So that bright idea, no wonder I never thought of it before because it doesn't work. Better solution in my notes. It's already there. All we really have to do when the user clicks the cancel button is tell the grid, pretend I clicked on you. Let's run that again. Make some changes. If I don't hit save, what happens if I change records? Does this stuff get saved? No. Shouldn't we yell at the user? Yeah, that's Unit 4. But for right now, if I change and come back, they're all back again. So to cancel, the easiest thing to do is simply tell the grid, pretend like I clicked on this. Because if I click on this row, what does it do? It takes the ID from that row, goes to the database, gets the data that's in the database, and plops it onto the form. and the stuff in the database hasn't changed. One command. Let's put this where it needs to go. There's a nice comment, and in here my notes tell us, pretend like you click the grid. We call the grid select changed event. But whenever we call it, we have to give it a sender and an event args, and I don't care who sent it, I don't care about any event args, so I'm just going to make those null. And remember, whenever I click on the grid, it goes to the database. Let's go take a quick look at grid select changed. Put a comment on that record. Whenever we click on the grid, it gets the ID number, gets it, and displays it right away. Done. Now if I hit cancel, it should click on that and put these back again. Magic. Not really. Use the exact same code, so go back out to the database, give me the original data because he changed his mind. Put that on the form, wipe out whatever's there. If I wanted to test this thoroughly, I would change everything and watch what happens. We already tested those. Large, nah, I don't want any cola. Don't want any cheese sticks. Don't have a coupon. Oh, wait, that's not oh, cancel. Back. Cool. Can't be all there is to it. There isn't. What if I make an error? $144 coupon. That's an error. Cancel. I said go out and get the data, bring it back in. I never said hit these fields and leave them and validate them and remove error markers, but you know how to do that. Whenever I do this, I also say ERR provider.clear. Because if I'm going out to get data from the database, it has to be good data. I can trust that I can erase the error markers. Has to be good data out there.
That worked if it already saved.
No. Yes. His question was, will it work if you've already saved? It'll bring back the saved version of it. Once you hit save, the database has changed and we no longer have the original data. So no, I know what you're saying. I hit save and I go, oh my God. Too late. Right? Just like Microsoft Word. Oh my God, that was the wrong file and I already saved it. Well, in Microsoft Word, you at least have the opportunity to go back, undo about 85 levels and hopefully get your document back the way it was. We don't have an undo here. And in Access, there's no way to do that. Remember your Microsoft Access class. If you change a record and leave, those changes are permanent. You want them back to where they were? There's no undo. You gotta go type them back in manually. It doesn't crash my program, but no, it doesn't restore the original data because that's gone. Check my notes, make sure I didn't forget anything because I probably did. Call that, call that. You'll also want to clear the error markers. You might want to add verification. Are you sure you want to cancel your changes? Maybe they are a little jittery and they hit the wrong button because the save and the cancel buttons are kind of close. You sure? How would you do that? Message box. Yes, no message box, just like you've written before, right? All that happens right before here. We create a response variable. Need to see it? Somebody nod your head in one direction or another. So you want to see it? Trevor? Okay, Trevor's nodding that direction. So I need one of those response variables, which is a dialog result response. And some of you started putting the message box right on the end there. That works. I'll make it separate. Response equals message box, not icon, dot show. Are you sure you want to cancel your changes? And I'll just put a title of verification on there and a message box. Buttons. Let me box buttons. Where's my buttons? Buttons dot yes no. And an icon. Of a question mark. If the response double equals yes, then do it. Otherwise, skip it. Quick test. Still large. We're back. I tend to find that annoying. But if it's a really huge web form, that's not a bad question, right? You made all these, you really made all those changes? Whether you add that to your program is up to you. If you add it, better do it right. Let's stop there. That gives you a half hour to fight with Unit 2 or quit for the day or whatever you want to do. When we come back on Thursday, we'll continue. Where are we in these notes here? Can't be a whole lot left. How do we delete a record? Figure that out. Oh, here's another little instance. I'm going to show you where we're going. Delete, you can imagine what's going to happen. But what happens if I decide that Beaupre's name is misspelled? And I hit save. Is it going to save it? Sure. Why not? Done. But look, it's not there. No big deal, right? Not for anal people. That's a big problem. Right. So my grid's not updating. Remember, my grid is based on a data table that we sucked in, put into that binding source. We never said go back to the database and update the grid. Go back to the database and update the grid. We never said that. If I delete a record when we write that code, we delete the record and it stays over here. No, that's not good. But what I don't want to do is every time I delete, every time I update, have to go all the way out to the database, bring in all 1,000 customer records and reload my grid every single time. I don't want to have to do that. I found a way. What we're actually going to do is update the grid. So when I update it here, I save it in the database, but then I cheat and go behind the scenes. Hey, you grid guy, put a Y on the end because it's changed. We delete it. We delete the row. And so the grid, we are responsible for making sure that the grid always reflects what's on the screen. If I switch here and click on him, notice his Y is there. It just never shows up in the grid. If we delete and don't remove them from the grid, that causes a problem because when I click on them, we go out to find them. They're no longer there. The database goes and we get all kinds of problems. So we still got to sort that out. Big important note. Refreshing the grid sort order. What happens if I sort these by name or I change the date to 3? Let's change the date today. Save. Erg. Not only that, but if I could get it to change, it would stay there. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be down there at the bottom. That's not good. So we have to figure out how to resort it. I found a way. It's not hard. Just got to do it. Inserting new records later. We got a little bit more to cover here. We might not be able to get all of it done on Thursday. If we don't, then Tuesday. But here's my promise. When I'm done, the rest of the time, whatever it is, to break, which is a week from Monday, is lab. So if I can finish this Thursday, all of next week is lab, and you can spring break this class starting on Monday. That's this class. But so you'll have a lot of lab once I get done with this unit. Before we'll start unit 4 when we come back. And so Thursday at the very latest, Tuesday for an hour is my guess. Maybe Thursday you'll decide, keep going, get it over with. I can do that. So that's the plan.